This is a clipless pedal. When you engage your shoe into the pedal, we call it clipped in. What the heck? Hello, welcome to Shad Life. Yes, why do we call this a clipless pedal? Yet when we engage, we say we're clipped in. It makes absolutely no sense. So, let me tell you the backstory. But before I tell you the backstory about it, let's talk about the term mountain biking, right? Okay, mountain biking, like I'd say 85% of us riding mountain bikes are not riding in the mountains. So, again, another confusing term. Like, I'll tell people that aren't very familiar with biking that I ride a mountain bike, and their immediate brain goes to riding in the mountains. And I get it, right? So let's go back in time a little bit, and then I'll talk about these pedals. In the 80s, mountain biking, well, late 70s, early 80s, mountain biking was invented in the mountains. So it got coined the term mountain biking. But in the 80s, I know it was Schwinn and a couple other companies were coming out with bikes. They were calling them ATBs, which stood for all-terrain bicycle, obviously. That term did not stick. And so this is one of those things where the bike industry tried to change the term, but once mountain biking stuck to the cycling community or the cyclists, right? They could not get away from that term. It's the weirdest thing. It's like, even though the bike industry tried to get people to start calling them all-terrain bicycles, people kept calling them mountain bikes regardless, and so they just gave up and just kept calling them mountain bikes, and to this day we still call them mountain bikes, right? So that brings the question of, why do we call this clipless, right? This is a clipless pedal, yes. And when you're engaged, we're clipped in. That's just like so baffling. So let's talk about why we call this a clipless pedal. So if we go back before clipless pedals were invented, we had pedals. They were caged pedals, and here's a picture so I can kind of describe it, because I don't actually have one because they're just old and outdated. I know some fixie riders and stuff still like to use them, but there would be a caged pedal, and they had little slots and stuff in them, so you could put toe clips on them, and you could bolt the toe clip literally to a caged pedal. And so that was a clip. A toe clip is basically just a loop piece, but then they added straps for more stability. You could tighten the strap. The problem with toe clips is they were kind of hard to get into. You'd have to like flip the pedal, and some of these pedal designs, they had little like catches, like levers on one side where you could, if you got good enough, you'd flip those, because the pedal would always go upside down where the clip was down. And so you'd flip it, get your toe in there, and would get pretty good at it. So when I first started racing mountain bike, that was what we did. We had toe clips, right? And that was kind of what everybody rode to get more power on the climbs and things like that. And this, we're talking like, late 80s, early 90s, although there were people that got into mountain biking before I did, and they were using toe clips and stuff. And toe clips were popular with road bikes, road racing, track racing, things like that. So it had been around for a long time, but also, I'm not sure the exact date that clipless pedals, and it was the Shimano SPD from what I understand, came out, but I want to say it was like early 90s, and that allowed people to engage their shoe into the pedal. And so that is why they called these clipless pedals. This is a Time, by the way, not a Shimano, but the reason they call it clipless is because it didn't have the toe clip anymore. But what kind of baffles me is then why did we call it clipped in when you engage your shoe into the pedal and you have this cleat on the bottom and you basically can step in, and we called it clipped in. So how that became to be the terminology, I'm not really clear. I understand why these became clipless pedals, right? But I don't understand how we called it clipped in when we're clipped into a clipless pedal. I mean, really. So I get it. It's pretty silly, and if you really think about it. But that is, again, once people started calling it those things, you couldn't change it, right? It was really difficult to change. So then let's add this into the mix. Isn't this a clipless pedal? Well, no, we don't call this a clipless pedal. If we were to truly say what is a clipless pedal, this would be a clipless pedal, right? But we call these flats or platforms. I call them platforms. A lot of people call them flats, right? So, but the reality is this is a clipless pedal, but it's not, right? This is a clipless pedal. This is a flat. And then this pictured here is a clip pedal, a toe clip pedal, whatever, right? So it gets really confusing. So we're stuck with these terms. Mountain bike, even though most of us don't ride our mountain bikes in the mountain. So clipless, clipped in, and flat or platform. I hope that clarifies the confusion, but it really doesn't. I appreciate your support for my channel. Please like and subscribe. Peace.